My name is Jack Ray, and I am here to do my Ameliorating Emily Dickinson project here for Monday's class period. I'm going to start with the poem that I chose. I had no time to hate because by Emily Dickinson. It reads, I had no time to hate because the grave would hinder me, and life was not so ample I could finish enmity. Nor I had time to love, but since some industry must be, the little toll of love, I thought, was large enough for me. On this next slide, you see the poem that I created, emulating Emily Dickinson in the same poem that she wrote. It reads, I had no time to hate because my specular would arrest me. Since time was too short, I could end my life with animosity. Neither did I have time for fondness, but since an extraordinary life must be, time is of the essence, I thought. Something fulfilling must be for me. For my project, I decided to do research and explore Emily Dickinson's poem, I Had No Time to Hate Because. Some of my first thoughts about this poem included to know the difference between love versus hate, brevity of life, afterlife, and personal agency. The rhyme scheme of the poem is ballad rhyme. This means that the poem alternates non-rhyming and rhyming lines. There are 2 stanzas with 4 lines each, 1 sentence in each stanza, as you can see. To me, this poem envisions certainty to ease identity. She is faced with a tough decision to choose. She exerts full agency over her life and emotions. She's also faced with some regret when she's plagued with her decision. She is not content with dying. The speaker of this poem, I believe it's Emily Dickinson, almost seems to be speaking to us from the end of her life, or even beyond her grave. However, there is still no indication of age or sex or location, but after doing all of our research, I have came to a conclusion that I believe that she is not describing a particular event that takes place at any time, but instead seems to be reflecting on her thoughts that she might or had during her life, although she is still living. In the first stanza, she talks about how life is too short to allow ample time to hate. Enmity means the state of feeling of being actively opposed or hostile to someone or something. Emily's use of this word make it sound to me as though hatred is bothersome to her. Being actively opposed to something takes a lot of work, implying that hatred is an involved process. She also mentions that the grave would hinder me, which could mean that this work she would put into her hate would be cut short by death and would not be maintained. There are words indicating past tense, had, would, was, thought, etc., which is why I believe that she is reflecting on her life. The second stanza moves its focus from hate to love. She says that they did not have time for this either, that she did not have time for this either. The word industry here could mean energetic devotion to a task or an endeavor, or ongoing work or study associated with a specific subject. Either way, like Emily in the previous stanza, this suggests that much work or devotion is necessary to love. The next line, though, although seems to contradict this, the little toll of love, tolls defined as strenuous work, exhausting labor or effort, but also as something that binds. As Mr. Rich said, and all of us have come to a conclusion that she's very specific with her choice of words. This might suggest that although there is still a lot of devotion and work involved in love, it doesn't seem like such a toll, meaning exhausting. Though the poem is about love and hate, it is also very much about the brevity of life. Hate is mentioned once, while love is twice. There are, however, many references to time and life, considering the length of this poem, which is very short and not giving us enough time to consider these matters. I have no time, the grave would hinder me, life is not so ample, nor I had time, all referring to the shortness of life and time. In my poem, when I started doing research for all of her poems, I really fell in love with this poem. This poem had such a strong use of language and story that I immediately got connected with. It took me a while to find my own way to emulate this poem, but I believe I gave it my best effort. When I started working on my own version of this, I decided to stick with the same rhyme scheme, a ballad rhyme. This means that the poem alternates non-rhyming and rhyming lines. Same as before, there are 2 stanzas with 4 lines each and 1 sentence for each stanza. For me, this poem envisions certainty to ease identity. It's also faced with a tough decision to choose not living and live an extraordinary life. There is some part of regret of not dying. The speaker of this poem is me. I'm also speaking to the audience from the viewpoint of my view of my life now with all my experiences that I've gone through in my life. In the first stanza, I kind of followed the same thing she was doing, more than I thought I was supposed to do, but I moved on. However, I believe it ended up working in my own case. I chose similar words to grave and having the grave end my life with hatred, but, I realized that time is of the essence, as they go on to say in the second stanza, that this is key to life, that I want to live an extraordinary life. I need time to go with me every step of the way. I need success, I need to fail, and I need to keep moving forward every day. I want to live this extraordinary life instead of hating or not liking or just becoming the same. There is also no time to consider all the stuff that I've gone through in this life. The grave would still hinder me or arrest me, since time is very short. And you have no time to think about anything that is going around you. It is so important to keep those people around you, to learn from everyone, and to keep moving on in life. You need to be extraordinary. You need to keep living. Time is of the essence. It's ending fast. You need to make the best life you're capable of making. And you want to be fulfilled. You want to live this extraordinary life while being fulfilled in life. I thought this poem was very special when we're just getting into Tech Week for Pippin. And that has been an incredible journey, and that kind of inspired me for this poem. But this has been awesome, trying to emulate the same sort of stuff that she's gone through, and I learned so much about Emily Dickinson in this process.